And right now we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Vonnie Quinn taking you through to that closing bell on this Friday afternoon. It's a global simulcast. Carol Massar made it in for a fifth straight day. Tim Stenovec by her side. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, including our partnership with YouTube. A rare update.
Do you need some help there?
As of late, I'm a little verklammed. I was expecting a down day.
Only work 5 days or 4 days a week.
Yeah, I can do a 4 day.
How does this work, Tim? Are we allowed to object?
No, we have to be quiet.
Okay.
We have to be quiet until Carol and Romaine work it out. Okay. We just let them go for it.
Hey, listen, we're on track for a down week on the S&P 500 after 3 consecutive weeks of gain. So we've seen quite a pop to the upside. It feels like stocks overall have been taking a bit of a break, but there are individual gainers that have actually done pretty well.
We got some economic data in recent days that's made people feel kind of okay about where the U.S. economy is. I wonder if the payrolls report next week will change their mind. 50K is what the economists surveyed by Bloomberg are expecting. We'll be talking about that in about a week from now, and we'll see if that number gets revised as we get closer to that release.
I thought you were going to say we'll see if that number gets released.
I was just going to say, if that number is released.
If the government is still open, yeah, exactly. Well, after 3 days of declines, they were very small declines, and it turns out, Romaine, that we are seeing an update to finish the week.
Yeah, and we talk about this being a macro-driven week, and of course, with concerns about a potential government shutdown, and of course, a big job support 1 week from today, that could be the driver of the market, particularly in the absence of any major corporate fundamental stories. We get green on the screen here on this Friday afternoon, though we should reiterate that on a weekly basis, all of the major U.S. indices are going to finish in the red for the week. For the S&P and the NASDAQ, that's basically ending a 3-week win streak. For the Russell 2000, a 7-week win streak comes to an end. But the green on the screen for today, 300 points higher for the Dow, 0.7%. 39 points higher for the S&P, 0.6%. 99 points higher for the NASDAQ Composite, 0.4%. And the Russell 2000 closing out the day higher by 23 points or 1%.
All right, going back to the S&P 500, as Romaine laid it out, we are finishing with gains here on this Friday. And you did have most names in the S&P 500 actually higher today. Vonnie, you've got 429 gaining ground, 73 to the downside, 1 unchanged.
And that's obviously reflected in the IMAP, where you see just green across the board, really, just consumer staples barely in the red, but consumer discretionary up there with utilities among the highest and best performers. And that presumably after personal income and personal spending data came in better than forecast, that obviously would help the consumer discretionary stocks.
All right, so many gainers. Look at the green on that map. So many gainers to choose from. So get ready for Romaine to interrupt me and add to my list. Having said that, I got to talk about EA, Electronic Arts, because that is your number 1 gainer in the S&P 500, NASDAQ 100. Kind of ran into that spot after we saw that headline cross initially with the Wall Street Journal story, but Bloomberg also matching the reporting. Electronic Arts up about 15% here at the close today. This as that story came out that this company is nearing a deal to go private. It would be a massive deal to go private. We're talking about maybe a $50 billion leveraged buyout. It would be the largest buyout of all time, LBO of all time. This is according to people familiar. Again, we're talking about Silver Lake said to be a part of that, Saudi's public investment fund. So we will see ultimately if that happens. But what are you thinking?
Well, when I looked up, anytime I see these deals, I always look to see where they're ranked. I was actually surprised that 50 billion is basically the threshold for the biggest buyout ever, potentially, obviously, if this actually comes to fruition. You would think there would have been something bigger, but it was really that TXU deal, I guess, way back when, before Tim was born.
I was thinking
that was like a $45 billion.
Well, adjusted for inflation.
Yeah. I was thinking about is it KKR and Nabisco and
that was 31 billion. That's in real dollar. To Tim's point too, you have to adjust for inflation, but still. And then you had that $44 billion Twitter buyout, which is a deal.
All right, so EA definitely on my radar. A couple of chip names I just want to mention.
Take-Two was up also by about 5%.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right,
see, this is what happens, Vonnie.
Yeah.
10 minutes later, I get to the last one. All right, so chip names, let me go through it. We had Global Foundries and Intel both rallying. Global Foundries up about 8%, Intel up about 4.5%. This is after, again, the Journal, Wall Street Journal reported that the Trump administration is weighing a new plan to reduce U.S. reliance on chips made overseas. So we did see some movement in particular in those two names. I also want to mention PACCAR. It was top in the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100 here at the close, up about 5.2%. It's a chip maker, and it rallied after President Trump announced new industry-specific tariffs that include a 25% levy on heavy trucks. And analysts say this company will benefit because it makes a lot of its trucks right here in the United States. U.S. production. There you go.
Can you get them at Costco?
I don't think so.
Well, that's where I'm going right now because it was the worst performer in the S&P 500, down 2.9% today. The company did report after the bell yesterday a mixed fourth quarter, including adjusted earnings per share and comp sales that excluded gas and FX that came in ahead of expectations. But analysts had high expectations. They said that the premium valuation versus its peers contributed to high expectations going into this print. Shares down today by about 2.9%. RH, they operate the restoration hardware chain of stores. Shares of furniture retailers, including RH, tumbled today. This after President Trump announced the U.S. will enact new tariffs on imported kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and other home products next week. RH, with the outspoken CEO, has already declined 46% this year. That was through yesterday's close. And finally, Klarna. Kind of been a mixed road for IPOs of late, Romaine. Klarna fell 3.8% today. Yeah. Remember, it IPO'd a few weeks ago at about $40 a share. It fell below the IPO price for the first time. And increased competition, worries about interest rates. We spoke to the CFO of the buy now, pay later firm Affirm yesterday, who essentially told us the same thing that Max Levchin told us a few weeks ago, the CEO of Affirm. Yeah. Everything looks good for us out there in the landscape. We're not seeing any cracks in the consumer.
All right, let's check on yields real quickly here. A mixed bag, but generally speaking, yields did not go much of anywhere. You're looking at moves of basically about 1 basis point down on the 2-year, up on the longer end of the curve. We should point out on a weekly basis, though, we are pretty much higher across the curve as a lot of people now really starting to rethink whether we are indeed going to get Fed rate cuts. Carol?
All right, let's get to two of the most read stories in the past 8 hours on the Bloomberg. We're going to go to this one. I think both involves men around a table, but let's see if that's true.
My favorite.
There you go. White men. This is the headline. White men are making a comeback in American corporate boardrooms. It turns out corporate boards in the U.S. have never been more diverse. These same boards are now hiring white guys at the fastest clip in more than a decade. And what's interesting is, we talk about diversity. That's been certainly a priority, but that is kind of not as important maybe for companies. And what they're looking for, Tim, is people with experience. And that turns to be a lot of white men who've been in the workforce for a long time.
Interviews with directors and recruiters make clear that boards are seeking candidates with expertise as CEOs to help navigate economic and political turmoil, particularly tariffs. As far as numbers go, white men making up the majority of new directors added this year at S&P 500 companies. This is the first time going back to 2017. I think a change in the environment is fair to say has happened in recent months too.
They need people who've dealt with turmoil. I mean, this is a great story by our Jeff Green. I just want to point out.
But we talked a lot in the last few years about the pipeline and how you increase the pipeline of diverse candidates, and that obviously, if this is what's happening, that obviously hasn't happened over the last.
It does seem to be what's old is new again, but just like with cowboy boots, sometimes it's just not right. I mean, cowboy boots are in as well. It doesn't make them. It doesn't make them the right thing to be wearing. You know what I want to talk about? The Ryder Cup. You know why?
Oh.
Because Europe is leading 3-1.
Surprised me. I didn't know.
Yeah, 4 matches in, and Europe is 3 points. So that takes us away from the other conversation. Romaine, are you?
I am curious. We're actually going to talk to Chad Mom a little bit later. I mean, if you've seen Happy Gilmore 2, if you've seen, the reality show that's out there on Netflix here, he's responsible for that, really kind of putting golf into a pop culture moment. He actually started just for 2 days here a morning talk show. Called, I think it's called like Breakfast is Bethpage. It's kind of a partnership they're doing with NBCU down at Rockefeller Center. You can walk over there if you want, Carol. You have to get through security, but I don't know if they'll let you in. But.
Probably not.
I don't know if we're on the list.
No.
Yeah. I just told them. I said, you know who I am? They said no. And I walked around, with the blue. So.
What else you got for us?
Well, I'm just curious if you were walking around, are you planning on going out to Bethpage this weekend? Because President Trump just did. He was there for an hour, and of course it was a bit of a test of his popularity as well. He tends to go to these sporting events, and he would have had some supporters on the teams as well. We know Bryson DeChambeau, for example, is a huge Trump supporter, but There'll be 22,000 people per day on that Long Island Railroad, so I hope none of you have to travel on that railroad this weekend.
I thought you guys were going to talk poker.
Yeah, me too. So anyway, Carol, it's lovely to see you, by the way, Carol. I mean, we made it through the week. Really appreciate it. We'll see how many days you make
Did you
next
hear
week.
that? Vonnie brings everybody together.
Sorry.
You do, Vonnie. I'm so
Yes.
grateful you're here
I did
because I've
want to
been
talk about that poker
outnumbered.
conversation.
It's
Yes,
been a
Vonnie.
little. It's been a little rough.
Congratulations to that 24-year-old, though.
What?
The poker player.
All right, guys, we got to go. All right, please.